So, you've probably seen the highlights of the new update, and you've seen this strange looking pancake tank. You know that it's probably Soviet, and you know that people are memeing on it, but should you grind it, and is it any good to play in War Thunder? Well, the answer to both of those questions is yes. The tank is well worth the grind, and it is incredibly overpowered, frankly. So to summarise the tank quickly, which I guess to be honest isn't great for my YouTube watch time, but anyway, the Object 775 is incredibly small, decently fast, it has incredibly thick frontal armour somehow, and it has an incredibly good fully stabilised missile launcher with a 6-second auto reload. All of these factors combine to make the Object an incredibly ratty tank. It's actually really hard to kill, you're very tanky somehow. The only real downside of the Object is its battle rating of 9.3, as you usually get dragged up to 10.3 matches, where the composite armour schemes of main battle tanks can generally eat your incoming missile. But lads, the Object 775 was added in the recent update. I can't remember what it's called, and frankly I don't care. I've been playing War Thunder for so long now that I've just given up on being... It's draining. Anyway, it's a rank 6 vehicle sitting at battle rating 9.3 in arcade, realistic and sim, costing you 200,000 research points, and to unlock it you're going to have to fork out 550,000 silver lions. And for the expert and ace qualifications, it's 550,000 silver lions for the expert and 2,100 golden eagles for the ace. I don't think you need the qualifications to be honest with that 6-second autoloader, but it is nice to have as it will generally increase the repair times when you take damage. For the reward multipliers, we have a base RP modifier of 2.2 and a base silver line modifier of 2.1. So lads, I've already said that this tank definitely is worth the grind to get the vehicle. But do you want to know how to play this tank more effectively? And more importantly, do you want to learn how to kill the little bastard? Well, stick around for the rest of the video to find out. Alright lads, welcome back after the intro. Hopefully you still like that one. So for the mobility, the tank is powered by an engine producing 700 horsepower, combined with a vehicle's weight of 35.5 tons, power to weight ratio of 19.7. Pretty good for a Soviet tank to be honest, a lot higher than you'd expect. The reverse speed again, like all Soviet tanks around this battle rating, is a bit of a kick in the balls. Only being able to go 5 km per hour backwards is a huge problem in modern War Thunder, especially at battle rating 9.3 as you will face the 10.3 premiums, which basically dick on you when it comes to mobility. Survivability again is also good in my opinion. If we take a look at this cutaway, we can see that we have the carousel in the centre of the picture. It's also worth bearing in mind that the ammunition is stored in, or pretty much underneath the lower frontal plate, so any penetrating round here will make the tank roleplay as the Tsar bomber. Another issue with the survivability is the crew of 2 men. The driver and commander are basically sat where the gunner and the commander are sat on any T-model Soviet main battle tank, which gives us the same weakness. Any penetrating round to the side of the vehicle, at least in the centre of mass, is likely going to, again, kill the vehicle outright. So what about our actual armour protection itself? Well, surprisingly this tank actually uses composite armour scheme, like a Challenger 2 or a regular T-72. As you can see from this image, both the lower, upper and the turret all has composite armour screening. This gives you fantastic protection against both kinetic and chemical weapons. But to be specific, if we take a look at some of the small caliber AP-FSDS rounds fired by several IFVs, we can see that we are basically immune frontally and from the sides to be honest. You'd expect this though. If we move things up a notch and go to DM23, we can see that the lower frontal plate and the turret ring are vulnerable, but the upper frontal plate is still quite strong. Bearing in mind though, we will be shooting down at this tank rather than at its own level, so armour values will probably be a little bit lower. Stepping up to DM33, and the tank does look in the armour viewer that it is basically immune, but in game though, again, we're going to be shooting down at that lower frontal plate, which does contain all the ammunition, and you are going to get a penetrating round here. And finally, we step it up to the insane level of penetration, the 9M113 rounds found on the BMP-2M. Basically any chemical weapon really. If you penetrate the low frontal plate, again, it's going to hit the ammo and cook it off. But generally speaking though, for a 9.3 vehicle, the tank is incredibly bouncy. Most tanks at 9.3 are using like the early Sable rounds, so you can basically tank a lot of incoming rounds. In an up tier, not so much, but again, this is 9.3, so you can face 8.3 tanks in this, and they basically have no chance of penetrating you frontally, which is really the main reason this tank is known as ratty. It's very small and annoying to kill. And that brings me on to another feature of the object. We can actually depress the suspension. If you go into the controls and go to the suspension control, we can bind 4 keys to different things. Incline backwards obviously is going to make the tank tilt backwards. Incline forward is inclining the tank forwards. These two both allow you to get either better gun depression or better gun elevation. Obviously the incline forward is the main feature which people will use, as it is going to allow you to get a little bit more over a ridgeline and put that gun to work. We can also use the decrease clearance and increase clearance. This basically completely lowers the tank or increases its clearance. This basically just turns you into even more of a rat. It lowers your profile right down. This doesn't have much of a battlefield role in my opinion, but it does make it harder for enemies to spot you. Just thought I'd mention it, as it does genuinely allow you to get better gun depression, which is a major issue in this tank, which we'll cover very shortly. Also, increasing survivability is our dozer blade. Again, this is a bit of a gimmick, but you can entrench yourself, I guess, if you really want to roleplay as a proper Russian, I guess. We also have ESS as well, but we do not have smoke grenades. So we can make that cold smoke, which, well, comes out of your exhaust. It does obviously make a smoke screen, but any enemy with thermal imaging will be able to see through it. But again, a battle rating 9.3, there aren't many tanks with thermal imagers. And I did mention that poor gun depression. That's because this tank uses the 125mm D126 gun/launcher. It only has 5 degrees of gun depression, but you should have expected that, as this is a Russian tank who are quite frankly tied with the Dutch for not knowing what hills are. We also have 18 degrees of gun elevation, which is, I guess, good, but not really that useful. We can carry 24 rounds of ammunition into battle, and our carousel has a ready rack of 7 rounds. Once these 7 missiles have been fired, however, it will take you a bit longer to reload. Kind of like some of the other autoloading tanks, you will have to refill this ammunition bin before you can reload. So don't fire all 7 missiles straight away. But to be honest, you're gonna have to be a pretty awful shot to fire all 7. Anyway, onto the reload skill. We can see that we have a constant 6-second reload. Doesn't really matter about the qualification of the crew as well. So you've got a Russian lineup and you've not got a very highly trained crew, I'd stick this tank in there, as it obviously doesn't matter. Onto the targeting speed, and like any good Russian tank, the turret traverse is abysmal, only 20 degrees per second with an ace crew. So, not amazing. Getting that turret rotation round onto an enemy target is quite hard. You might want to rotate the hull. But this tank has so many Ws that it can handle one L. Another L though, well, a certain L in my opinion, is one of your 2 rounds. This is the BUR, or the Burr round. It's basically a high explosive shell with a rocket engine on the back of it. This little bastard has a muzzle velocity of 380 meters per second. It's incredibly slow and it has a very, very high arc of fire, I guess. It's basically absolutely useless. It only has 4 kilos of TNT equivalent, giving you 37 millimeters of penetration. As I've said, you basically can't aim this thing at long range. It's not even worth taking into battle in my opinion. Your main round though, which actually is very good, is the Rubin ATGM, sorry. Almost had a stroke there, I guess. This travels at 550 meters per second and is SAKO guided. Bear in mind, this thing is vulnerable to IR dazzlers. So, it's only really Soviet tanks which have dazzlers. But yeah, just bear in mind, anything with like countermeasures, it can make this aim have like a stroke. It goes off to sideways and you can't hit anything with it. But generally, the Rubin is a very good missile. It travels pretty straight out of the barrel. It feels quite responsive to input from controllers, which is more can be said from the toes. We have a launch range of 4 kilometers, which is quite a lot lower than most missiles, but again, in War Thunder, 4 kilometers is an entire map. The tank contains 4.29 kilos of, the warhead contains 4.29 kilos of filler, giving you 500mm of penetration with its high explosive anti-tank warhead. As I said in the introduction, 500mm isn't going to be enough to deal with any 10.3 tanks you come across, but most tanks at 9.3, 9.7 and in down tiers, 500mm of penetration is more than enough to deal with any tank frontally. Even at 10.3, getting around the side of enemy tanks, you can still clap their cheeks, to be honest. The tank, again, with that good mobility, small speed, and a good missile, you can't really complain whatsoever about the Object 775. It's one of those tanks which can be made to work in pretty much any circumstance. It's like, literally is like a rat or a cockroach. Nature just finds a way. I don't know how those things still exist, but they basically just keep on going through hardship, which is what the Object 775 does. It basically just tells APFSDS rounds to fuck off. It just bounces them for some reason. The missile is incredibly trolly as it just goes through pretty much everything. And yeah, there's not really too much to say about the tank. It's pretty blatantly overpowered at its battle rating at 9.3. The fact it reloads faster than most main battle tanks and bounces a lot of their incoming rounds. Yeah, I'd say this tank is definitely well worth the grind in my opinion, lads. The only major downsides is the reverse speed as well as the lack of a Soviet lineup at battle rating 9.3. You only have things like the T-64A and the T-72A which are pretty dog shit. But apart from that, the tank is fantastic. As I said, you will just gonna have to take it into quite a lonely 9.3 lineup. Anyway boys, thank you very much for watching. Big thank you to my YouTube members, Lola Alfonsi, Tans, Duboa LX, Dr. Bob, Tomster013, Arth28 Sarmat, Pumpen, Shunty, and Van Halen. Once again, big thank you to my members. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. And be sure to let me know down below in the comment section what you think about this tank and any tank you'd like to see reviewed next. Once again lads, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey lads, if you made it this far into the video, then thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I have a whole load of other content on my channel, including tutorials and other vehicle reviews, so why not give them a watch, and if you like them, please do consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching though boys, I've been SAKO, and I'll see you in the next video.